Steve Morse, please?
That's me.
Hi, this is Steve Harris calling from Tokyo for Young Guitar Magazine.
Yeah, how you doing, Steve?
Good, good. Where are you right now?
I'm at home.
Oh, okay. I see. Where is home?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's California, Northern California.
Oh, that's right. What part?
Placerville, up near Lake Tahoe.
Uh-huh. Placerville. Well, I'm from Marin County myself.
Okay, well, you know where Placerville is. It's just in the foothills on Sierras.
Yeah, sure. Although I've been out here for about 10 years now, so don't get back there much. I've been handed a list of questions here. See, I'm originally an interpreter and a translator. And
really? You speak Japanese?
Yeah, I was a major in Japanese back at Berkeley, and then I came out here and been working in the music business and other sort of related fields since.
Well, you must really have it nailed, because that's a hard language.
Yeah, yes and no. I find
Can you write it?
Yeah.
Wow.
I find playing the guitar harder.
Okay.
I can envy your position as well.
Well, I don't know. 3 chords, it gets you pretty much on MPD and the radio. And I guarantee it takes more than that just to write one of those words.
Yeah, well, perhaps. So at any rate, one of the journalists at the magazine there has provided me with a list of questions. So as I am sort of the third party, as it were, there may be some inconsistencies and whatnot. So I hope you'll bear up with me.
Oh, sure.
He I guess took a listen to Southern Steel.
Yeah.
And as usual, found it to be sort of an array of various styles, which is sort of par for the course for yourself.
Yeah.
That's something you pretty much try to accomplish with each album?
Well, each one has a different slant, I'd say. The last album was a solo record for me. I considered it a solo record, and it was more acoustic-oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit more experimental than anything I'd done before. This new in Southern Steel, I was trying to get the band feel back. In fact, I had the band in the studio for the rehearsals and arrangements of the tune. And it's one of the few times I've included the band in arrangements since 1984, when I did my my first solo group, Steve Morse Band album. So it's new. It kind of.
Well, why did you abandon that approach for all those years?
It's not that I abandoned the approach. It just, the solo album, I did all the recording at home alone. The high tension wires was that way. And on the stand-up album, we were working with outside songwriters and things like that, so it wasn't so pure of a band sound. So this is, like I said, it's a very accurate representation of kind of the stuff we play live and in our general approach.
Do you have a studio out there in Placerville?
Yes. But we recorded in my studio when I lived in Georgia.
Oh, I see.
I moved the day after we finished mixing it.
What accounted for your move west?
I just wanted to see some of this western sky. I'm a pilot, and I really love flying. And me and my wife are both outdoor people, and we had 6 weeks straight of rain in Georgia. And during that time, we decided to move away from Georgia.
Yeah, I guess that can get to just about anybody.
Yeah, it wasn't the kind of rain you find in Florida, where it rains and stops and the sun comes out. It was just days of overcast, muddy rain.
When you came to Japan towards the end of last year, you did an interview with Young Guitar Magazine. I don't know if you.
Yes.
Oh, you recall that?
Yeah.
You said at the time that you would be calling the new album. What's this? Two Rock for Jazz. But apparently the record company didn't care much for that. It seems to almost apply to the sound, though, at least according to this guy's opinion here.
Yeah, it was a good title because it was very descriptive. But everyone I talked to likes Southern Steel better because it is also descriptive of the music, I thought. So I generally try to think of several titles and tell them to people that I know and let kind of have a vote.
Is Southern Steel different from Southern Metal?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of it implies the two things put together. A heavy metal approach with a little bit of that bluegrass or country, funky, Allman Brothers kind of feel thrown in.
Yeah. I guess it was toward the end of last year on Japanese satellite TV here. They had a performance of yours at the Bottom Line in New York.
Right. Yeah.
And about when was that done?
That was last summer. We did that performance just for Japanese TV.
Uh-huh. And that was with your current lineup?
Yes. And that was in the hopes that we could get our tour out there very soon. Hint.
But that show was also a very diverse array of styles.
Well, we played pieces from the early Drake's albums all the way through the last album. Like Too Many Notes was from the High Tension Wires album.
Had you wanted that to be sort of a what's the word? When you want to display your wares to the public, what do they call it? A showcase.
It was just a representative set. That's what our set is similar to, and that's all we wanted to do. We didn't want to do anything different than that for the Japanese TV show, because it's a strain knowing that you're being recorded live, and we just wanted to stay with what we normally played, and so everyone could relax and enjoy it.
What kind of shocked me though was that it was it must have been like an hour and a half long.
Yes.
And you guys just sort of blazed all the way through it. You're not petered out at the end of a performance?
Not necessarily. No, we take it very seriously. Everybody, none of us smoke or drink or Dave will have a beer occasionally, but it's very much of an athletic event, playing the parts, and so we take it real seriously. And just like it doesn't tire me out at all. It's very relaxing to spend a lot of energy playing, because it's not stress. It's just challenge. It's challenge and reward, which is much less stressful than work. Traveling is much more stressful.
I see, yeah. Well, one reason I asked that is because Joe Satriani recently said in an interview that, after one of his shows, he was just totally knocked out. I mean, he said he would have to go into practice 8, 9, 10 hours a day before he was on tour, just to sort of beef himself up for it.
Well, yeah. I sort of agree with that a little bit. You have to train more intensively. I do, for about a week or two before, just to elevate your chops to the point where you don't get exhausted.
By the way, who thought of the actual name Southern Steel?
I did.
It was your idea. And the interviewer was wondering what's the connection to what he calls Southern rock.
Well, just the approach of maybe the solos having more melodic bits in them, rather than all thundering fast licks. And the approach, like in the song Southern Steel, it's practically a banjo part. Is the first theme you hear. It's played like a banjo player would, but I use the open strings of guitar and my fingers to get a little bit of that sound. Things like that, just and using harmonics and like the song Vista Grande is very open and very relaxed feeling, like something like the Southern rock feel. But it's not directly like it. There's no identifiable things where it says, "Oh, that's Marshall Tucker," or "That's 38 Special." No, not at all.
Yeah, that's the sort of the tricky part of this. There are actually quite a few questions here related to.
Let me interrupt you. The solo in the song "Sleaze Factor." That's very much like a Leonard Skinner type of solo.
Oh, I see.
Because in fact, I was trying to do that because the song just had that kind of real slow, funky, heavy beat that Leonard Skinner would do. So I said, well, shoot, I'm going to try to do a solo that captures the feel of their real wide bends in their playing.
There's the question here on what exactly Southern rock means to you. The term. What does it suggest?
So I've touched on that already, but again, it's a more relaxed, more melodic approach to soloing, and putting a little bit of funk in the playing, in the rock playing.
So Leonard Skinner pretty much symbolizes Southern rock to you, then?
Yeah, I mean, I really like their stuff, and so same with the Allman Brothers. In fact, the new Allman Brothers is great.
Uh-huh.
I really like that kind of stuff.
They were just out here, and I guess they're sort of going through a reconnaissance, right?
Yeah.
Or renaissance right now.
Uh-huh.
So I guess there is sort of renewed appreciation for that type of music. Are we? There's another one of the questions here. Are we to assume that Kansas, a band you did, I guess, sort of a short stint with, is sort of represented a style of Southern rock?
No, I don't think so. They were more of into a little bit of a European sound, I think, English sounding, very, like Emerson, Lake and Palmer things, Yes things. I don't think they were very Southern sounding to me.
What they used to
until when I got in the band.
Do you think you had a little bit of that?
Sure. Sure.
How did they respond to that? I guess they picked you up more for your chops rather than for your Southern fried style.
Well, I wanted to do writing with them, and that was one of the points that I wanted to write with Steve Wallace, and that's my main reason for wanting to do it. I'm a fan of the group. I wanted to try to bring back a little bit of that big, majestic sound with the instrumental being very important. And that clashed a little bit with the record company's idea of bringing back a hit single.
Was that the eventual conflict there?
Yes, I think, in my opinion, and believe me, there's probably 8 or 9 opinions that are all just as valid as mine.
It seems like Kansas really never quite got back on the commercial track anyway, though.
No, and probably part of it was due to the conflict there. I didn't embrace the hit single idea as totally as some of the band members would have liked, and the record company would have liked, and so I felt like I wasn't the right person for the job after a certain point. But meanwhile, we did have some great live shows, and I really enjoyed that. But the recording process was a little bit of a work, even though we had great producer on the last record, just great. Bob Ezrin, who did the Pink Floyd, and Bonham. But still, the goals were just a little bit divergent.
But you've always sort of been a performer, like outside of the mainstream, I guess.
Yeah.
We don't really expect you to be playing on hit singles necessarily.
Right. Well, I didn't expect to either, and that was the problem.
It just wasn't happening.
No, it was a good experience. I'm glad I did it, but at the same time, I put my time in, and it was time to go.
What was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back? What finally made you decide to leave the band?
Well, we did one record and one tour, and we decided to try another. And when we did that second record and tour, in the middle of the tour, I decided that it was just, I really missed doing my own music and having my own band, which I had been doing all along in conjunction with the Kansas tours and recording, when we had time off and things like that, but I really wanted to do it full time. And that's all. It was not in one event, but because, I feel like you got to finish what you start, I've waited till the end of the tour.
Back when you were younger, before you actually turned pro, like say back when you were a teenager, were you sort of listening to top 40 radio or FM stuff? Did you grow up like listening to Leonard Skinner or Southern rock and that kind of thing?
Yeah, but I'm so old that back when I was a teenager, Leonard Skinner was still not invented. No, things like the early psychedelic music. That's when I grew up as a teenager. The Hendrix, Cream, stuff like that.
So you were already like, I guess, around college then when the Southern rock thing started happening. Huh?
Yeah.
And like, did that inspire you at all to like get into to pop, or were you more dedicated to going into like more serious music?
Well, I'd say I started off with pop stuff, underground music we called it, or heavy music, and now it's, they call it the same thing in Led Zeppelin.
It's called classic rock now.
Yeah, classic rock. Thank you. Anyway, it started with all that stuff, Rolling Stones, then on to Led Zeppelin, and then the Southern rock. But then I kept getting weirder, and never came back. I, seeing John McLaughlin with Mahavishnu Orchestra and things like that, and getting to know people that, like Pat Metheny, or more jazz people. It made me want to do weirder things and more experimental.
Yeah, that's what I was about to mention. Dixie Dregs almost seemed to be sort of like an American reaction to the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Yeah.
I guess in retrospect we can kind of just sort of take that as sort of a given.
Yeah.
The sound of the guitar, the addition of the violin, the intricate arrangements and whatnot.
But the big difference I was trying to get across was that it was a rock band, whereas Mahavishnu Orchestra was a heavy jazz band, very progressive jazz band, with rock sounds. We were a rock band with weird influences,
Yeah. Well, actually, those tunes were kind of pop, Dixie Dregs.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's too different from what I do now. Not exactly pop, but not exactly totally weird.
It's kind of a complex question. Blues music and blues and country music are sort of, I guess, subtly interlinked. What separates the two styles, blues and country?
Well, I would say first of all, generally tempo. Country music usually has a more up-tempo and a happier feel, so you play more in major keys.
Yeah.
And they're very close sometimes. A lot of barroom type country tunes are very close to blues, but the majority, country music covers a wide spectrum from western swing, which is almost jazz, to bayou music, which is really kind of the funky forerunner or funky parallel of the 50s rock and roll, like Jerry Lee Lewis kind of, and Little Richard rock and roll. So I'd say the big difference between blues is the generally the tempos are more upbeat than and the music is in more in a major key. But you can play blues licks over a lot of country tunes these days because they're sounding more and more similar.
Well, it's interesting that you should give that definition of country because obviously in your own style, the type of country music you choose to deal with is more the bluegrass type.
Yeah.
Of course there is a lot more slower tempoed country stuff, but that has very little to do with your own personal style.
Yeah, that's true. That would be the country western ballad style. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the bluegrass stuff I like especially because it is generally more complex and closer to the European music, European roots that I like so much.
Yeah. Well, it did kind of come over directly from Ireland, or the British Isles, I guess.
Yeah, which I love that stuff.
Getting back to the album, when exactly did you record it? I don't think you mentioned that yet.
Oh, it was last summer. Let me think. Let me try to be a little bit more specific. I'm trying to think. But thinking is a strain. Was it last summer? No, it wasn't. We had already moved last summer. It was February, March, April of 90.
April of 90.
Yeah.
And did you go into the studio with the material already ready, or?
No, I had some of the tunes already. Like Point Counterpoint was already written, and Wolf Song was already written, and we had done a version of Southern Steel already, or I had done a version solo without these guys on it. So the rest of the stuff we wrote together. And I mean, I told them from the very beginning that I would be actually writing material, but that I wanted them to be at every rehearsal and give me their input, you know, as far as arrangements and what they liked and didn't like, and as in exchange for that, to try to have more of a band feel, you know, that they would be part of the publishing.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was nice of you. I guess taking care of the band members there, huh?
Yeah, that was kind of, you know, some bands do that, have done that for a long time, and I just felt like it was a good time to, you know, inject a little bit more of a band interest.
One reason the guy asked this question about, you know, when you wrote the material is because it is so diverse that he figures that it couldn't have all been written at the same time. It must have sort of been stocked over a long period of time.
The only one that was old was Point Counterpoint. And the other stuff was written in a very narrow time of about the ideas. Now, when I write a song, it's hard to pin down because I keep an idea for a year or years before I work on it. But I started pounding out the ideas and finalizing the ideas during the time we were rehearsing, which is right after Christmas, you know, for early 1990.
Do you always compose on the guitar, or do you use any keyboards or anything?
Oh, a lot I switch from classical guitar to electric guitar to keyboards all the time to try to get a different viewpoint. That's what makes it maybe sound different, one tune to the next. Like Wolf Song, for instance, there's a slow ballad, minor key, that I wrote on piano. And Southern Steel, of course, I wrote on guitar. And Point Counterpoint is totally different than either one of those, and I wrote that on classical guitar. And each song has a different personality because of that.
So you use a piano, and what other sort of keyboards? Do you use any synthesizers?
Well, yeah, like in Simple Simon. Once we get to the B section of that, there's a keyboard part that's real. You know, it's almost like almost sounds like Farfisa organ playing 8 notes. But and I just combined a bunch of synthesizers till I got some really weird sound, and then but I generally bury the keyboards because it doesn't offend anybody since I usually play them. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, when we had a keyboard player, I could never bury anything. Everybody had to hear their parts, or else they get pissed off. But doing the keyboards myself is a great advantage because I can get a little bit of different texture. You hear the guitar mainly, but it gives it a little bit different texture, having a keyboard part underneath it. And I like doing that because, like I said, I can do it because nobody gets pissed off.
Yeah. It just it does highlight the guitar sound when you tone it down.
Like the chorus, what I would call the chorus part of Simple Simon, I played the violin in. You know, is a kind of a fiddle part, very much like that Cajun style of fiddle play, 2 strings at a time. I played that just to add to the guitar part, and you can barely hear it unless you have a CD and listen carefully. But it's there, and it makes a difference having it there. But I buried it because the fiddle player wouldn't get upset if I did. And that was me.
So technology has solved yet another problem.
Yeah, well, fiddle I had played manually, so that's hard. You just, you have to rosin up the bow and go for it.
I guess at the same time, though, that there might be certain performers who'd like to kind of bury the guitar. Could you ever see yourself just in a purely supportive role, just sort of, playing to a singer?
Yeah, in Kansas, that's just about all I did.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And I guess that sort of contributed to your frustration over.
Yeah, the idea of it is not bad, and I mean, I agree totally. I mean, teamwork is teamwork. I agree with the idea, but just for me personally, several years of it in a row was a little bit too much.
Do you ever feel weighed down by the guitar after a while? Does it ever? Do you ever kind of have to? Do you ever feel the need to sort of step back and say, you know, the music is just getting too guitared out. I've got to, you know, play down this and start concentrating more on the melody or on the arrangement or on the other parts?
No, not at all. Because when it does feel that way, I use a different guitar sound. For instance, let me go back to that. How about the tune Vista Grande? It's very open and spacious in the beginning, not very guitaristic at all. So I played the entire part on harmonics of the guitar, you know, using artificial harmonics. So it sounds like bells, you know, like a piano and bell sound. It's just not very guitaristic. Then a guitaristic part comes in. Then the next part is arpeggios that would be very good on a harp or a synthesizer or something like that. But I used the guitar synthesizer and the guitar together to give a different texture. And then in the middle, we wanted something totally different from all that, so we did two-hand tapping routine with bass and guitar doing counterpoint. And that's the way I like to do it. I like to change textures by using different approaches. And you don't, you know, you can easily get 100 different guitar textures.
Yeah.
If you just spend a little time in the studio.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that sort of separates you from the field is that before all the technological innovations, you would actually have sort of all the different styles for changing your texture, just by sheer by your sheer method of play.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I mean, but having a studio is a lot easier because you know you obviously can mess around with tones and find something that sounds different. I don't go overboard with it. I just arrange, you know, I just want to get the feel of the composition is the main steering device. Whatever fits the composition is what goes there. And I just happen to not write very much stuff for saxophone, you know?
Yeah.
But I did put saxophone in my last album, but it was a sampled saxophone. The song called The Road Home, the main melody was done with saxophone.
It was a sample, huh?
Yeah.
And
I play it with the guitar synth and guitar.
In spite of the fact that you do sort of offer a musical smorgasbord at all times, I guess we would have to sort of categorize you as, you know, just guitarist, guitar performer. Do any of your peers, are any of your peers making any music that you feel is exciting or new, like any other guitar performers?
Sure, all over the place. Some of the ones that people may have heard of would be, of course, Eric Johnson and Michael Lee Firkins, Firkins.
Yeah, we all know about Michael Lee over here.
Oh, okay. Well, shoot. And God, so many people are playing great. I'm sure she must know all the Tony McAlpines and all that, then, right?
Me?
The Tony McAlpines and all that.
I guess the guys back at the magazine probably heard of.
Yeah. There's a lot of great guitarists now, and Michael Lee Firkins and Eric Johnson stand out to me. I mean, everybody knows of, you know, Satriani and Vai and all that, but in addition to them, Michael Hedges, of course. People like that write things. Music. It's music that sends me, not so much the playing. I admire great playing all the time, but good music with great playing is best entertainment.
So that it's mainly a musical thing then.
Yeah, for me.
There's actually the following question here is on Eric Johnson. Hold on just a second here. Okay. Well, Eric Johnson seems to be a guitar player who sort of he goes beyond genre, and you know, I guess like yourself, he can kind of deftly sort of switch around styles. I guess your philosophy toward music would probably have a lot in common with his.
Yeah, we've known each other for maybe 12 or 13 years, and he also lived in the South, in Texas, in a small town, kind of, and was not, really part of a big city scene, and just developed his style to perfection. I like turning people on to him because, there's no way he'll disappoint anybody.
In your own case, do you try to just sort of reproduce what comes into your head, or are you consciously trying to pursue the possibilities that the guitar has to offer?
Well, yeah, to a certain extent, yeah. I try to, search for different things for the sake of doing something different. But mainly, and I have to say, I play the stuff that from my heart. I'm trying to get out. If I'm trying to just get out a feel of something and inspired to get that sound, sure, I'll work and figure out a technical solution. But most of the time, it involves a musical manipulation more than a technical manipulation.
Well, I guess once you get an idea for a song, it sort of takes on a life of its own. You'll be able to maybe pick up a different kind of guitar and get a different idea and add something here, or go into the studio and find out that something new can be added there as well.
Yeah, that's true. But just like a life of its own, that's a good analogy, because I treat each composition like it's a child that I've let loose on the world. And so I try to educate the child the best I can and give him the most well-rounded, amount of foundation. I really take each composition seriously, and like for it to stand on its own 2 feet and look at me and convince me that it's worth doing before I would even ask anybody to play it, let alone record it, and take people's money indirectly, when they buy it. So the composition is very serious for me.
How does your solo playing break down? How much of it is improvised and how much of it is arranged in advance?
Oh, you mean playing of guitar solos?
Yeah, solos.
Oh, it's all improvisation that is done in the studio, and then I decide at a certain point, you just get a feel for when you think you've done something good. Or on this last album, I tried to have some help too. Dave would maybe be there and help me and say, yeah, that's okay. Let's listen to it, Try to get one more person's opinion and go back and hear if there's something good there or not. And that's why solos, they have to be done spontaneously to me. If I was to work it out, it wouldn't be a solo. It would be just another part. And it's the only way a solo can have air and breath and have energy that way. I mean, you can have an exciting solo, I suppose, if it's all planned out, but it's not going to be a solo that has personality, maybe. I mean, I don't see... I mean, I hear a lot of rock things where that the solo is done in advance, and it's different styles for different people. To me, I have to play it live, and be spontaneous. Otherwise, I mean, shoot, this is what I've done for over 20 years, so I have to have some kind of, challenge and reward, and that's part of it, is doing a good solo.
So I guess actually the spontaneity and how you can surprise yourself sort of helps fuel your creative fires as you play.
Yeah, definitely. But every time I do a solo, it's always, all right, let's do a solo, and I start with a blank slate, no ideas, and usually in space of an hour, I will have already played the solo that I will keep, in the first maybe 10 takes, is the one that I will end up keeping. But sometimes I'll keep on playing for over an hour, and trying different things and listening, just to be sure that I couldn't do any better than the one that I'm keeping.
Jeff Watson, formerly of Night Rager, I guess appears on the record.
Yeah, on the first song.
Cut to the Chase.
Yeah.
And how did you hook up with him?
the last Kansas tour and the last Night Ranger tour were a double bill together. And even though the tour went very well, we, between the two bands, we shared so many roadies and so many trucks and buses that I guess, it was not a big financial success for either band. But, ticket-wise, it seemed like it was very good. But we were doing theater-sized places. And anyway, Jeff has a great sense of humor. He's just a great guy. And he became one of my best friends just from hanging out with him.
I guess he comes from the Sacramento area, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's from Sacramento, but he lives in Marin right now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And how did he actually get involved in the recording of this last album? How did you get together for that one?
Well, I said, come down and play in this tune.
What did you, when you were making the song, did his face sort of pop into your mind, and did you think, well, he'd be great for that?
Yeah, I just kind of found a slot to put him in. I didn't write the tune thinking that Jeff was going to play on it. But at the same time, after I got to play with him a little bit and know him, I said, Jeff would be perfect for this song, just for a guest thing. And I had already recorded the song without him. And so I just erased some parts of it, and me and him sat down and traded off some solos spontaneously.
And now you're gonna have to explain this one for me. It says, the question here says his solo is an eight-finger style. Eight-finger play. What is that?
He uses 4 fingers on his right hand to play, to tap with, and 4 fingers on his left hand to tap with. So he makes these really long arpeggios on one string. And so I arranged that style into the song. And in the middle of Cut to Chase, me and Dave do a 2-handed thing, tapping, and then Jeff comes in playing an 8-finger arpeggio on top of that. And so we build it in as part of the song, his style.
So you did have the Jeff Watson signature in mind there, huh?
Yeah. But it was something we already finished it, and went back and changed it because I said, well, hey, this would be perfect to put Jeff's 8-finger thing in right here. That kind of we kind of fit it in with his style in mind, even though the song had already been finished.
Just to provide sort of a footnote here, there was a question about what Jeff is doing right now, because we sort of lost touch. We don't know about his whereabouts since Night Ranger broke up.
Well, I know that right now he's working with Steve Walsh.
With who?
Steve Walsh, this lead singer from Kansas.
Oh, I see.
And they may be just experimenting, or they're kind of checking out each other to see about a band. In fact, they're recording right now. But I don't know. Officially, that's probably not supposed to exist, but that's what he's doing.
When you were in Japan, I guess at the end of last year, you said in the interview, again, you're going to have to explain this one for me, something about Biff Baby's album being released?
Biff Baby's All-Stars album. That was just the name that this group I was traveling with called themselves. It's just a bunch of people that only play together on special occasions. Albert Lee is one of the players, the key man there. He's a country player extraordinaire.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Anyway, they're working on an album, and it's not done yet. I just played on one song, and that's all.
Will that be on the album?
Yeah, but it's mostly Albert Lee and the other guys.
And is that an active unit right now, or are they just sort of...
Well, because it's, everybody has other jobs that they do, other music things. And because of that, the album, it's real slow being finished.
We're getting near the end right here. There's about 4 more questions on hardware. And the first one being about the guitars you used in recording. Did you use your Music Man, the one you normally use?
Yeah, almost exclusively, just the Music Man. See, I designed the guitar, so it's pretty much what I want.
Can't get better than that.
Well, I mean, they said that they would build it however I want, and so it was no cost was no object because it was not a money thing. You know, I don't even take a royalty from those guitars.
You're right.
The only payback for me is that, you know, I can have those guitars whenever I want them.
Oh, I see.
But that's a nice thing, you know, because I had one guitar before that was all custom made and custom duded up, and it was impossible to duplicate. This way I have an endless supply of the same thing. Anyway, yes, I did use that always.
Do you know of this music band that Eddie Van Halen's using these days?
Yeah, we played, Eddie and I and Albert played together at the NAMM show in January, and that's what he used, and it sounds great.
Yeah, that was the next question here. At the NAMM show, what did you think of his performance?
Great. He is very, very brave. First of all, he walked on stage not knowing the material, and he was very creative. Every solo he did was different, and had a different. I mean, he's always searching for different musical sounds, which is really neat to see. I thought he pulled it off very well. You know, he was concerned about a few of the tunes which had a lot of changes that he didn't know, and so I was yelling at the chords in his ear while I was but he pulled it off great, and he has a lot of self-confidence to do that too.
It says here that Albert Lee is playing a different Music Man now. Are you going to make any alterations in yours?
No, I haven't yet. The only thing I've done to mine is a stock unit, except for I added a MIDI pickup, MIDI guitar synth pickup, which just is 2 screws, you know.
But it basically satisfies your needs at present, huh?
Yeah. I like the guitar the way it is. I switch amplifiers more during recording than I don't really switch my guitar.
But why do you change the amp so much?
Well, just to get a different texture. Like I'll go direct for a real clean sound, or use these PV speakers for a real fat sound, and maybe I also used a PV direct guitar preamp for a really unusually sharp sound. Things like that, you know, that changes the texture drastically, and the pickups on my guitar, you know, I use them almost in the way I play. You know, I change the pickups constantly during a solo or something.
Okay, and the last question here is, when can we expect the Steve Morse Band out here?
That is a question I would like to have answered as well. We played the TV show in the hopes that this would lead to our tour, and there was a distinct lapse in the response there. The tour didn't come up during the schedule we had, and we'd like to try again and open up a window of time that we could go to Japan. So if I hope you don't print that we're begging for a tour, but we're trying to get a tour.
Well, interestingly enough, you know, the other guys you mentioned, like Eric Johnson and Michael Lee Firkins, have yet to make it out here as well. Although
Eric will, because he's done so well with this record. You know, it's a money thing. I think the Japanese promoters are getting more and more, you know, geared toward the big hit kind of approach rather than the experimental jazz. You know, we like it because it's unusual approach.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's quite the opposite, because you know the economy over here is so good that all these little clubs have opened, and even the smaller acts are making it out here.
Oh, I know they're making it out there, but it's got to, you know, when you say smaller, they're not small as in like what's out here. We're working in the clubs, you know. They're generally pretty pretty well known and have a really good amount of press.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I think we're in an excellent position to do a tour, and we put all our eggs in the one basket of this promoter, and we should have been talking to more than one. So we'll have to start over, and it takes so many months to set up a tour outside the United States that it is a little bit of a problem. But we definitely want to do it.
Well, okay. Well, wish you the best of luck, and hope we have a chance to see you out here in the not too distant future.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you going through all these questions, and that's going to be a lot of work translating it.
No problem. All right, Steve. Thanks a lot, then.
Okay, thank you very much for calling, too.
Okay, then.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.